Hello and welcome to another Writers Showcase, everybody. It's going to be a little bit of a smaller one this time for whatever reason. We didn't get that many requests, so it's going to be a little bit shorter, which works out since I have to donate plasma in about 2.5 hours, which works out fine. Allows me to make a really big protein heavy meal. But allow me to bring in my guest. Please welcome Wasia.
I'm awake. Awake now. Uh,
Woo!
hey everybody, what's up?
Always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure.
Thanks. Huh.
Okay.
Anyway, we ended up doing a double feature today. In terms of presentation, considering we don't really have many people presenting, unfortunately.
You're cutting out pretty bad. Cutting in and out
I
pretty
am.
bad. Oh,
Oh,
yeah. Maybe you just need to go a little bit closer to the mic or something.
yeah, that's probably it. But yeah, might end up having to do a double feature. Like
Okay.
I said, since we don't really have a whole lot. And as it would appear, I only have 2 chapters that I could present, as I've only completed 2 of them recently. So, yeah.
That's
Well,
that's okay. That's good to have you.
do you have anything?
No,
Did you have anything you wanted to present?
I always have something I want to present,
Okay.
but
Should I just go ahead and get started?
I don't really. Yeah, you might as well just get started. It's fine.
All right. So, I'm going to provide some brief context really quickly because some of the dialogue will not make sense without it. And unfortunately, it was written with basically a retcon in mind. So, in an earlier chapter, I added in an interaction between our protagonist and deuteragonist, where she sees her twin sister getting beaten up by some street thugs, and she basically goes in, beats the shit out of them, and goes a little far. And and Maria basically pulls her back, tells them that it's not a matter of what they deserve, and that being having a sense of integrity and resilience is a part of beauty, and that you shouldn't let the world twist you and stuff like that. Some pretty basic and nice platitudes. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started onto chapter 13, Recollection. Quiet humming echoed in her room's darkened office. A blue projection of Earth hovered over his desk, and aside his visor was the only light source in the room. Behind him and to his right stood Grand Marshal Victor, master of the Praetorian Corps, now called the Planetary Security Corps. Malik sat across from them, hands folded and wearing his concern on his face. His radiance, his glow, both had disappeared, replaced in replaced with an oppressive gloom. So, you believe that she's on Earth? The Chancellor began. His voice was as cold and neutral as ever. Malik looked up from his desk and caught a glimmer of the pink light flashing on the continent that was once called Africa. He nodded, trying to hide the tremors in his form. "You're fearful for her sake." "Like you would know," he snapped at him. "Fucking machine," he cursed in his head. She's all alone on an irradiated wasteland, probably scared out of her mind and crying her eyes out. What do you think? Haroon, reclining back in his chair, took a moment to process the information. Victor, he began, your synopsis. The Grand Marshal stepped forward, hands folded behind his back. Given the planet's location in the demilitarized zone, the missing linen volta from maximum security, and the fact that Lord Cafirus has been crowned Emperor of the Dominion, he listed off. I say no more than a platoon to retrieve Lucia, especially since a platoon? Malik interjected. I'm sorry, just a platoon to retrieve a phoenix? He looked to Haroon. I thought you valued them more. With a simulated sigh, the Chancellor gave his explanation. Of course I value her, but we must keep in mind all the variables at play. I thought you would understand this as the leading candidate for chancellorship. Malik, disarmed of his bludgeoning stick, kept quiet. You should be happy I'm letting you send Terra on this mission, or giving you the chance to redeem yourself, Haroon snapped back at him. There are other COs with superior track records. Most of them would be eager to take this assignment. Malik, seeing he was disadvantaged, nodded. Then the matter's settled, Haroon said. You'll dispatch a force to Earth and retrieve Lucia. Alive, he demanded. You'll doom humanity otherwise. I'm sure you understand. Malik, taking a deep breath, answered his brother's demands. More than you know. Nodding, Haroon moved on from the subject. Good, he said, adjusting himself in his seat. Victor, if you don't mind, I'd like to discuss something with him in private. The Grand Marshal, abiding by his Chancellor's request, exited the office, his boots clanking as he did so. Malik's expression quickly darkened, his forehead crinkling. The sound of the door sliding shut reverberated in the office, and with it, Haroon began to speak. You're doing rather impressively at the polls, Malik. However, are you sure you don't want to change your stance on the resettlement program? Malik, eyes shot open, nearly launched himself from his seat. Absolutely not. I will stand by my morals and principles. He almost slammed the table. We mustn't force ourselves into their space. It's hostile and imperialistic. Haroon, earnest as ever, countered his position. We're not. The Dominion have been willingly negotiating for the return of Earth and its neighboring systems with us. Malik opened his mouth before Haroon cut him off. Furthermore, expanding one's borders does not make you an imperialist, Malik. It's the conquest and subjugation of others that makes you an imperialist. Malik, letting an ounce of outrage show through, snapped back. I don't care for your twisted definitions, Haroon. I won't compromise my morality. Letting out an artificial sigh and placing a hand over his faceplate, Haroon dismissed him. Very well. You may leave. Rosa's body was stiff. She moaned and stretched out her arms, feeling the straps dig into her, even with the Invo suit on. She unbuckled it, feeling the grease and sweat on her skin, and wiped it off. Rosa squinted, realizing the setting sun was in her eyes. She exited the driver's compartment, walking outside to see her twin lying on the sands, with a black band right next to her. Curious, she walked up to her, eyes darting away immediately when she noticed Maria was topless. Despite this, she sat next to her, but turned her gaze ahead. Yet there was a scratch in her throat, a question that begged to be asked, that Rosa fought the urge to say, but she caved in. Can you put your top on, please? Maria shrugged, her siren-like voice slipping into the air. No, don't want an uneven tan. Rosa glared at her, focusing on her face. Besides, I like the breeze. It's nice, calm, relaxing. Honestly, I wonder how you can stand wearing that thing. Taken off guard, Rosa answered back. What are you talking about? Maria raised an eyebrow and glanced at Rosa. Exhaling, she sat up, leaning back and staring off into the distance, the golden light of the sun gleaming off of her shining skin. Well, if you don't know, our chest is where our essence is produced. It gives us our powers and it's pumped into our hearts to be sent through our body. Rosa's forehead crinkled. That's oddly specific. Why do I? Her heart skipped a beat, her eyes shot open, seeing the still beating heart of the redhead in the hunter's hand and her ripped open chest. However, Maria's voice would pull her back. The reaction's what Merrill calls exothermic. So our torso's not only super tough, but it also heats up quickly. Rosa nodded along, not breaking eye contact with her twin. Maria, however, began smiling and put sass into her voice, which is probably why you're sweating right now. Rosa tugged at the collar of her suit, feeling a draft of humid air run against her. It was sticking to her skin, her upper body feeling like a steam house. That top can come off like a normal shirt, right? Rosa, confused and flustered, answered back. But I'm not wearing anything under it. I wouldn't want you to. Maria rolled her eyes. Rosa, it's not like you've got anything that I don't have. She blinked, darting back to her suit, seeing the crease at her hips. Shrugging, Rosa removed the top half and discarding it, feeling the rush of cool air. She smiled in relief, feeling her body cool off. Her ears twitched as Maria followed up. Now, doesn't that feel much better? Rosa answered back with a smurf. Pfft, smug bitch. Maria giggled. I'll take that for a yes. Rosa squinted, spotting some structures in the far distance, along with the shimmering of the Mediterranean. Rosa took a glance back at the truck, then at Maria. So, that's where we're going? Maria shook her head. Not tonight. I ran over something nasty and popped a tire. Rosa glanced back at her, then to the lopsided vehicle. But there's an abandoned village along the way. We can rest there for the night and finish heading there tomorrow. Rosa, taking another look at the disabled vehicle, turned her attention forward. The gentle brush of the Mediterranean breeze blew her hair back. Her eyes focused on the serene view and the distant calls of seagulls. A blissful silence between the two as Rosa introspected, piecing together more of her identity. The once blurry images began to sharpen as she learned to distinguish them between memory and dream. Yet a gloom formed in her head. No matter how much she tried to forget, the shadow of it all came back to haunt her. The fear in his eyes, and the glee on Maria's face. Rosa, quivering, focused ahead. Was she always like this? Did I never notice? Rosa dug through her head. Every image she could find of Maria was either when she was scared, calm, or joyful. She, were, she recalled walking down the hallway with her in school. She was dressed in an open black jacket and jeans, but Maria was always fully dressed. Yet they always picked on Maria. The boys always ogled her, and the girls always threw slurs and insults at her. Rosa felt enraged and yelled back at them. Somehow she always got into a fight, Maria screaming for her to stop, yet Rosa didn't until she was put on the floor and spat on, or she stood triumphant over them. She remembered the look on Maria's face, the wild fear in her eyes, the prayers she uttered. In all of that, never did Rosa find any hint of what she witnessed the night before. With a blink, Rosa returned to reality, looking back at the scared little girl, or what's become of her. Was it because I wasn't there? Is that why you became this? The The question itched and scratched at her brain, irritating her until she couldn't confine it to her head any longer. Maria, she opened, getting her sister's attention. Rosa's eyes began to water, seeing Maria's face overlap with the murderous grin she had. Yet her twin's expressions now turned grim. When did you become that thing? Eyebrows drawn together, Maria answered back with a bone-chilling and quiet tone. What thing? Rosa shuddered, feeling her neck shiver. She gulped. Back at Bitterstone, when you killed that last guard, there was something different about you. She paused, seeing Maria's face remain as on edge as before. It was like you were possessed or something, like a monster. Maria took a deep breath, as though trying to contain her rage. Yet Rosa could see a glimmering in her eyes, like they were watering. Her tone remained assertive and vindictive. Me, a monster? For what? Killing that little shit? Rosa kept her lips sealed but shook her head. Maria's grim expressions turned vicious. You've seen what they do to women like us, right? And you dare call me a monster? Rosa shuddered, feeling a passion in Maria's words. I don't need to defend myself. They all deserve to die, and you know it. Rosa's eyebrows narrowed, her chest jittering. You know that's a lie. They're human for fuck's sake, just like she blinked, Malik's visage flashing through her head for just a moment. With renewed vigor and passion, she answered back. But what if he wasn't like the rest? She asked. What if he was just doing this shit to save his own skin? That he hated doing this? Maria lost her grim expression, looking bewildered now. He looked pretty scared after you, Maria scoffed, barely containing her laughter before letting it out. You serious? She wiped the tears from her eyes, seeing that Rose's expression remained stern and morbid. The smile melted from Maria's face. You can't be serious. Rosa, unflinching and stern, watched as Maria's eyebrows drew together, her teeth locked together in a snarl. When did you become so fucking naive, Rosa? Why are you defending scum like him? Rosa felt a tremor in her form, eyes watering as she answered back. You didn't know that he was scum. He could have been on our side and helped us out. Maria relaxed, softening her tone, her eyes twitching as tears began to leak out. Finally, Maria whispered back, her voice cracking. Trust me, he wouldn't. None of them did. She paused, tears streaming down her face as a fire lit in her eyes. And you know what? Good. He should be scared of me. They all should. I'm not that scared little girl anymore. Maria looked away, sniffing as she continued weeping, yet her face held the determination and strength Rosa had learned to fear. Rosa curled up, and a breeze blew by her, brushing against her bronze skin and lifting her pink hair. Her eyes empty, her empty eyes staring into nothing as she retreated into her head. This is wrong. All of it. The Maria I knew wouldn't say any of this. Muscles stiffened. Rosa looked to her sister, watching her eyes as she voiced her morbid curiosity. Maria, what did they do to you? Rosa checked back on her, seeing her chest expand and contract. Maria sighed. Fuck it. If I can't tell you, who can I say it to? Then Maria answered her question, her voice laced with malice. Everything. They did everything short of killing me. Maria breathing hastened, yet her vigor remained, and I almost wish they did. Rosa's pupils dilated, her heart pounding in her chest. And like I said, no one would save me. Apparently, I wasn't even human. So why should they? Maria turned her gaze to Rosa, the pink-haired Latina, seeing the fire continuing to burn in her eyes. Including me, Rosa thought to herself, eyes watering. No one helped, including me. Maria sighed, smiling viciously. But I didn't need them to. I saved myself. When that piece of shit commander came to play with his favorite toy, she placed a hand on her chest. I went along with it. But he didn't get what he wanted, though. Maria paused, giggling. Because I killed that pig. Her breathing hastened, her voice becoming hysterical. I felt alive. Nothing had felt better in my whole life. I knew what I had to do, Rosa. I had to make them pay for every night I suffered, every life ruined, and everyone they killed. Maria caught her breath, her crying eyes staring into Rosa. I told you already. You're getting what they deserve, Rosa. Every last one of them. She hung her head, chest contracting and expanding. Maria wiped the tears from her face, picking up her top and putting it back on. Rosa curled up, head resting above her knees. The passion and ferocity in Maria's voice echoed and reverberated in her head, bouncing off the image of her twin that she remembered. Her bones shivered and her stomach twisted. No, that's not you. You wouldn't let that change you. Her head lit up. Her, her heart lit up. Her eyes tensed, and tears slipping between her eyelids. Rosa snapped. That's not what you told me. Maria raised an eyebrow, checking back on her. Then, with a quivering in her chest and a passion in her voice, Rosa raged. It's not about what they deserve, Maria. It's not about not letting them twist us. Didn't you say that beauty comes from integrity? That no matter how cruel the world is, you never let it break you. Rosa stared into Maria's eyes, half intimidated by the resolve and malice Maria shown. She answered back, her voice powerful yet subdued. You have no idea how easy it is to just say that. Shaken, Rosa answered back, her voice cracking as she continued to cry. But you wouldn't give up. Even if you were beaten to the ground, you just get up as kind and loving as before. Rosa's breathing filled the silence between them, the two locking eyes until a mortified Maria hung her head. Rosa's body calmed, the tears drying on her face. Lo cierto, hermana, but can you leave me alone for a bit? Rosa complied with her twin's request, but not even halfway up, Maria uttered her thanks. Gracias, Rosa. She glanced back at her twin, seeing Maria hadn't shifted from her spot. For listening to me, that is. Rosa, at ease, simply answered simply. De nada, Maria. She walked back to the truck, sitting inside the driver's compartment, resting her eyes and her body from the trek for the trek to come. And that is chapter 13.
Interesting. Some of the word choice was kind of odd, but I guess that could be your
Yeah.
style.
Yeah, I
Um,
noticed that too. Some of it was a little janky.
yeah, yeah. I was just like, hmm. So is the setup with kind of the line about her being really nice in a previous chapter, or is it something that you've
It
kind of
was
came up with
more or
this?
less just a thing. It was more or less a thing that I realized I didn't really establish very well. So I had to go back and add it back in and add it in. I also
Okay.
took the opportunity to basically have a chapter where Rosa takes an exam for her position as an officer. And I also took it and I placed it between Jareen's introduction and the moment where she tried to murder her. And I took advantage of the opportunity to kind of establish a little further that Jareen is a scary thing that is being dealt with and needs to be dealt with,
Okay.
essentially.
Okay.
So yeah. God damn, I wish Tarek was here right now, my dude. I would really want to hear what his thoughts on this because, yeah, he was pretty blunt. He's pretty blunt about what goes right and wrong in these sort of things.
Yeah,
Well, I guess I do have you.
yeah.
What do you think? Was anything tonally off in there?
No, I didn't see any like tonal mismatches. The only thing that I kind of noticed, like, it was kind of just the only thing that kind of like was throwing me off was kind of just some of the odd word choices here and there. Those are the
Yeah.
main things. Since I think you probably noticed at least a few of them, they kind of look nice on paper when when you're writing them, but when you read them out loud, they kind of just like, oh, this doesn't quite feel natural. I guess
Yeah, I mean it's
oh, go for it. Sorry.
okay. I mean, this is the first time me reading this aloud, so yeah, there's that to consider.
Mhm.
But but yeah, I just agree in general.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I think like just like some of the kind of the odd things, like kind of just the mostly like I think the dialogue's actually fine. It's just kind of the in between the dialogue sections that kind of feel off. They kind of just feel a little bit stilted.
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Other than that,
Well,
seems pretty straightforward. I like. I think that some of the kind of explaining a few things. I think you did a good job with like kind of making two topless women talking as tasteful as possible. Tasteful.
yeah,
So
yeah,
so.
that's the thing. It's not that the way that I'm kind of approaching it is that yeah, it's just a casual thing, you know. It's not like this risque thing like in this setting, you know,
Mhm.
a woman showing her chest. It's just a normal thing because it's just yeah, it's literally part of the human body. It's not really anything to be excited over.
Mhm.
Anyway, I guess I may as well move on to the next chapter. Let's see. This one is actually the one that I struggled with a bit. Haven't had anybody review it or anything. So we're heading into uncharted territory.
Okay.
So, should I just present it?
Um, we can just do a slightly shorter one, since I have my thing pulled up, and you can kind of reserve it for for next time, so you have a little bit of a buffer, so you don't have to feel as pressured, unless you really want to present it
All
now.
right. I mean, I kind of do want to share just to see how pacing of the story is between two chapters, because this one's a bit more intense. And by more
Um,
intense, I mean in the life and death sort of thing.
okay. There's currently nobody watching, so I don't know.
Really?
So I'll be the yeah. There's nobody watching right now,
Oh, that's
so this one's been our lowest attended stream in a while. I don't know why. I made sure
what the
to.
heck? Oh, somebody's here. Okay, thank goodness.
Hi, Kishu. How's it going?
I guess I could watch the stream that I'm a part of and just bump up those numbers a bit.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, you have a minimal audience. I made sure to post it in the Discord, so
Yeah.
I really don't know.
All right, I think I'll just go ahead and read chapter 14 then.
Alrighty.
All right, chapter 14 Hunted. The orange sky turned a dark gray. The moon refused to shine its light on the Luna twins, the stars shining behind the dark clouds. So Maria held up her hand, a purple flame burning in her palm. Rosa felt the dirt and sand shift between her toes, carrying her boots in her left hand to stave off the blisters. There it is, Rosa heard her twin call out. She squinted, getting a better view of the long since wrecked village. This place got overwhelmed by some insectoids. Took a few Dominixes to wipe them out, Maria exposited. Never reclaimed it, though. Rosa, still squinting, voiced a question. So, this is where we're sleeping? She looked at her sister, the purple light illuminating her face. Maria shrugged. Well, first, we'll have to clear it out. Make sure nothing's skulking around and waiting for us. She placed her free hand on her hip. So, we're gonna split up. I'll check on one side, you check the other side. Sounds good? Rosa shrugged. May as well. She turned her attention forward. The sun had finished setting, casting them into darkness, leaving only Maria's violent flame to light their path. Rosa clenched her whip blade, feeling a fluttering in her chest as she stared at the town. The structures began to distort, with teeth and protrusions growing out of the buildings. Rosa, Maria's voice pulled her out. Is Taspi in? Rosa clenched her fist to settle her nerves. Yeah, just a bit nervous. Maria studied her for a moment, eyes darting up and down. Hmm, here, let me fix that. Maria got behind her and lifted Rosa's right arm, pointing her sword forward. She whispered to her with a voice soft like velvet. Focus on something you feel strongly about. Anyone or anything you care about. Just channel it in there. Rosa raised an eyebrow. Something you feel strongly. No, passionately about. Her eyebrows shot up. Prithvi's parting words took on a new meaning. She closed her eyes and saw her twin, remembering her love, her affection, became enraged knowing that someone dared to violate her. I'm sorry I wasn't there from before, that I left you in this nightmare. But that changes. Today. A faint glow pierced her eyelids. Her eyes opened, tearing up, and she smiled warmly and jovially. Rosa glanced at Maria, seeing a soft smile appear on her face. Con alas llamen... I'll just read out in English then. I cannot speak Spanish today. With flaming wings of passion, you will spread compassion. Rosa echoed it to herself, instinctually grabbing the heart locket she wore, dropping her boots in the process. Rosa stared at her pink flames, entranced by them as they danced off her sword until Maria's voice pulled her out. That's the on switch. Rosa faced her twin. The off switch is to think of something calming, something to distract you from your passions, she explained, maintaining her perkiness. Then her tone became morbid. But there's an emergency shut-off switch to our powers. Panic. If you're in a fight, don't lose your cool, no matter what. It'll shut off all your powers, even the ones you don't know you're using. Rosa's pupils shrunk, her flames flickering for a moment. Right. Just gotta stay focused. I have to stop freaking out, so. Her mind flashed back to her time on Polis, her pupils widening. That's right. When I panicked, my aim became trash. I nearly failed at one exam. And the memory of Jareen flashed through her mind. The flames flickered again. Nodding, Rosa answered back. Okay, got it. Maria's perky attitude returned, placing a hand on her hip. Oh, one more thing. Maria reached down to her thighs. Just then, Rosa noticed a pair of bands surround Maria's thighs, each of them having pouches, knives, and a cylindrical grenade with a purple kiss mark on them. She pulled out a pair of earbuds and handed one to Rosa. If you see anything and you're not sure about it, call me and I'll help you out. Rosa took the earbud and placed it on her right ear. Gracias, Maria, she replied with a subdued smile. Maria smiled back, her tone flowery and warm. Anything for you. I'm gonna circle around this way. Just go and check out the other side of the town, and I'll meet you in the center." Rosa nodded, feeling the confidence radiate from Maria's smile. "All right, let's go." Rosa watched her twin walk into one of the bigger buildings, peering into the doorway before disappearing into the shadows, as did her warmth. The dark of night began to close in on Rosa, depriving her of any sense of security. Trembling, Rosa walked into the town, her eyes darting around with intense paranoia, with all the memories of horror and pain floating in her head. Rosa kept her lips sealed shut, feeling a slight breeze begin to pick up. She snapped out to her left, hearing something creak, and pointed her burning blade at it. The expanding and contracting of her chest became visible. Standing before Rosa was what looked like the remains of a hanger. Keeping her whip blade pointed in front of her, Rosa took a deep breath, looking inwards. "Keep the fire burning," Rosa reminded herself, feeling her eyes water. "Maria's counting on you. She believes in you. Don't let her down." She opened her eyes, and despite her better instincts, entered the building. Rosa's bare foot rolled off the metal floor, walking into the antechamber of the hangar. The pink glow of her blade illuminated her bare upper body and the chamber around it, its bright radiance enough for her to see. Her eyes darted around, noting her surroundings until she spotted an open door and walked in. One second, let me get a drink. Rosa's ears twitched, hearing something echo within the hangar, sending a chill down her spine and goosebumps across her exposed skin. Is that barking? She scanned the interior, spotting a few wrecked trucks and aircraft. Listening carefully and confirming the distant sound of dogs. Rosa felt a shudder in her chest, her skin hardening and the hairs on her neck sticking up, followed soon after by a gut-wrenching feeling. She wrapped her arm over her chest and as as the quivering climbed to her neck. What what's going on? Why does it feel like I've got a knife to my throat? It happened. Rosa's ears twitched. She swung her blade around in the pink glow. She swung her blade around, the pink glow meeting the savage orange eye of a hunter. Shit! She startled. Rosa backed off, feeling the blade swing just past her nipple line. She felt a punch and a sting to her abdomen, forcing her teeth to grit together. She glanced down for a split second, seeing the orange glowing nail and the pistol that fired it. She flicked her arm into the she flicked her arm into the wrist of the hunter, knocking his weapon aside. It stabbed at her, Rosa spinning around the wrist-mounted blade, getting behind and elbowing the hunter, throwing it off balance. Having gotten space between them, Rosa pulled the nail out and tossed it aside while keeping the tip of her blade between them. She caught her breath, her mind scrambled. A hunter? Here? How did it find us? It regained balance. Fuck, don't just stand there, Rosa. Do something. She heard a quiet whirl and somehow knew to duck and roll under the over the shoulder projectile launchers. Fuck, now I have to fight it. She swung at its legs, forcing the hunter to back up. She caught sight of something in her periphery, the hairs on her neck sticking up, her pupils dilated as her flames flickered. It wasn't alone. A clicking disturbed her ears, the sound of a rifle's safety being flicked off. She saw the orange glow of their eyes, the red dot sight placed firmly over her chest. Rosa felt her lungs expand and contract, the pulsing of her jugular and the cold sweats running down her face. They're right on me. Her body froze as the once roaring flames reduced to soft embers. I have to run. Now! She heard a creaking and clanking and glanced behind herself. The hangar doors were shut with the hunters cutting off her escape. It's been a while, Rosa. Rose, sorry, misread that. It's been a while, Lucia. Rosa's body shuddered. her head slowly panning. It approached her, the hunter she met mere days ago. Although I prefer your real name, Rosa Luna. She raised her blade to it, hearing the pulsing in her veins. Unfortunately for you, the other half of my pack is keeping your twin occupied. I would tell you how we found you, but frankly, what use does the dead have for that? Hysteric, Rosa roared. She lunged at them with a prideful roar. The hunter Alpha stood resolute as a fuselage of infernal rounds found their mark into Rosa's chest. The bolts punched into her, burning as soon as they lodged in. She gritted her teeth, eyes tearing up, groaning as she tried to fight through the pain, but ultimately fell to her knees. She dropped her whip blade, reaching for the multiple of burning nails stuck into her, while watching the orange glow spread through her veins. Rosa heard a chuckle, looking back to the hunter through her misty eyes. Pathetic. You phoenixes are just as sad as your Demonix daughters. Rosa's eyes lit with a wild rage, her breathing uneasy and rapid. Emotionally unstable beasts, so easily fooled and deceived. Rosa's eyes shot open, her hand ignited with a pink glow. Shot it! She lunged at the hunter, swinging her fist at him with a yelp. It countered, avoiding the telegraphed strike and cutting across Rosa's chest, followed by the splash of blood spilling from her. The fire in her eyes were snuffed out, the overflow of tears extinguishing them. Rosa collapsed to the floor, reaching for the nails in her chest. She shivered as a puddle of red formed around her. No, I can't die now. Please, don't let me die to them. And to think Maitri told us it was impossible to kill you. Rosa's eyes fixated on him, her mind blank as she caught her breath. She struggled to her feet, but her arms gave out, landing flat on her face, eliciting laughter from the hunters. I really wanted to kill you myself, but clearly you're beneath me. It pointed to one of the others. You, release the hounds. Perhaps Maria might make for better sport. Maria? Rosa's eyes shot open, a shiver running down her spine. She heard the boots of the hunters clank as they walked away from her, followed soon by a whoosh in the sound of barking dogs. Rosa had pulled out the last nail when she saw them. The darkness was lit by a row of smiling orange glowing teeth, a scene pulled straight from her nightmares. I can't die. Not now. Maria still needs me. She lit her fists with pink flames as she ran to reach for her weapon. The dogs growled and leapt at her. Rosa was right on time, swinging the unhinged whip into one of the hounds and cutting it open. The the whip ignited, lighting up the room. Rosa took the offense, slashing at them, cutting more of the hounds down. Promise I wouldn't abandon her. Another hound leapt at her, and she swung at the whip between its jaws, splitting its head. She felt a bite at her thigh, the dog shaking its head. Rosa gouged its eyes out, forcing its jaw open as she threw it across the room. A whistling erupted through the room. Rosa's eyes fixated, her pupils shrunk. One of the hunters stayed behind. A nail landed into her chest, but not deep enough to penetrate her heart. Rosa lost balance. Her arms opened, giving the hounds the opening they needed. One bit at her, one bit at her ankle. The other jumped onto the arm, carrying her blade, and the last sinking its teeth into the most sensitive and soft part of her chest. She fell to her knees, tears streaming from her eyes like rivers, letting loose a loud, pained cry. The surviving hounds joined in, biting into her abdomen, into limbs, even into her neck. I should have called Maria. Why didn't I just call her? Why did I think I could handle this? Rosa's eyes remained open, pupils shrunk and tears pouring. I'm gonna die. I'm actually gonna die, she cried. The image of Malik in terror flashed through her head. I'm sorry. I, it really was a failure after all. The hound started ripping off pieces of her flesh, forcing a scream from deep within her throat. I can't die now. She, she still needs me. Rosa yanked an arm free, the teeth scraping off her skin. She thrashed out, the fire in her heart reignited, as were her flames. The hounds backed off, her body finally allowed to heal. Yet her vision was blurring, her head was dazed, and her body soaked with blood and wounds with small chunks of herself missing. She swung her arm, staving off the animals for just a second longer. One of the hounds growled, lurching back before attempting to pounce, its body exploding into a cloud of blood as a bolt of purple flashed by. Rosa just noticed a sudden purple glow in the room and glanced behind herself. A woman stood behind her, her form wreathed in purple flames as her as her eyes glowed a bright violet color. Step away from her, you bitch! She let out. Maria unhinged her purple whip, the fire wire igniting in purple emulating flames as she rushed in. Rosa watched the hounds run past her and straight to Maria's whip. The wire danced around her in an elegant display, smiting the beasts before they could lay fang on her. Rosa tried to raise herself up, coughing blood in the process. This this is happening again? She she watched the slaughter, hearing the cries and whimpers of the animals as they met their fate. The last of them attempted to run, but was incinerated from the inside out, its skeleton briefly visible before it too turned to ash. Not wasting time, Maria's flames went out as she rushed to Rosa, sitting by her side, slipping a hand behind her neck and placing the other over her heart. Rosa could see her now, the tears streaming down, running, the streams running down her face, and a grimace of despair. Rosa, stay with me. Maria's uh, uh, Maria's hands glowed purple, yet Rosa continued to cough up blood. I'm not letting you go. You'll be fine, I promise. Rosa closed her eyes, focusing on breathing, the pain so overwhelming that she became numb. But Rosa felt Maria's tears drop onto her anyway. Her body became limp, feeling a warm course through her vein, feeling the stinging for just a moment before it vanished, as did every other sensation in her body. Whew! Boy, that was rough. I had zero practice for that one, by the way, and it also just occurred to me that Rosa is being too much of a goddamn simp. Also, thanks. Yeah, that was actually supposed to be an Aliens reference.
You're robot.
God damn it!
You're roboting a little bit.
God damn it. Did you at least understand anything that I said?
Yeah, I'm very sorry, man.
God damn.
Okay.
Man, my throat my throat and mouth is completely destroyed right now from reading 2 chapters in a row. I'm not used to talking this much.
Well, I told you were free to halt after that, but after one chapter.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
don't worry about it.
I guess it's right. So yeah, I think action's good. So I guess my question might be, so like for you, what are like your influences? Because I've never read very many people who write like you do, or at least like have your same word choice.
Honestly, I read a lot of Bionicle books while growing up. Like, I was a huge Bionicle nerd and a huge Bionicle fan, which is also probably why the elemental powers are just a thing that appears in my story a lot. Also, cybernetics
Mm,
too. I also noticed that whenever they were writing, they always italicized internal thoughts, which is what I do, and everything else is in
oh,
quotations.
that's pretty standard across everything.
Yeah, I assumed it was
So,
standard, since, As for outside influences, there used to be a video game called Scarlet Blade. It was a Korean MMORPG that got shut down in like 2016 or something. Um, yeah, it was pretty heavy on the fan service. I'm not gonna lie. I found it as a goddamn teenager. I mean, what it's like? Come on, what did you expect? Um, Ever since then, I've basically kind of like took some of the premise and decided, okay, I want to make this into a story, because I kind of looked at it. I'm like, wow, this game had a lot of potential, and I liked the fact that it featured an all female cast. Like that was cool
mm,
to me, for some reason. So I decided to borrow some elements from that. But later
mm,
on, as the story developed and matured, a lot of the influences began to fade away. I mean, some of it is still there. The whole commanders, the failsafes, the governing evil AI, and of course the all-female casting. That's still over there. But as far as outside of that, there's a lot of influence from Warhammer 40,000, at least in terms of organization and structures.
mm.
Uh, Doom is going to be pretty influential in the portrayal of the villains, but I don't know. I can't really nail down a singular thing that influenced absolutely everything. It's more of a hodgepodge of all sci-fi that I really liked while growing up.
That makes sense. I was kind of asking like your word choice and style more than anything else,
Oh
because
yeah.
like because that's the actually very interesting. Uh, because I don't know how well it will work because it doesn't quite sound
Yeah, I
natural in
know
some
that
cases.
chapter. That chapter was rough, like I said. This one was not ready to be presented, if you ask me. Um, I
Mm,
just wanted to see how this would tonally flow in together, and I can easily imagine that having Rosa and Maria argue with each other and have it being really intense, uh, and then jumping over to here, it's kind of a shift. It's kind of whiplashy, even.
mm. Okay.
Uh, I sure. I sure hope that the bit where Maria basically teaches Rosa how to use her powers was, sweet and all that, because
I don't
I
remember
kind of
that bit.
you oh, okay, because that
I,
was a
ca- I,
major
I
highlight.
can it kind of like it kind of faded into
Yeah.
the background of a lot of like, or are you talking about like the bit where she like talks about like how their core gets overheated? Is that what you're referring to,
No,
or is
like the
that
bit
a
like
different one?
how to activate her fire powers, and she channels it into her blade.
Oh, oh,
That
okay,
was the
yeah,
bit I was
a
referring to.
little bit clearer
I was
now. Okay,
yeah,
that's a bit clearer. Yeah.
I was hoping that would be like a pretty sweet moment and all, because finally we're getting some closure on that one. Because this whole time Rosa really doesn't really have a grip on how to use her abilities, and now she does.
Oh,
And it
that's
was
good.
kind of yeah, and that was kind of right there in her face the whole time. But the whole idea of
Hmm.
this chapter was that even then it's still not enough, and she feels terrible about it.
Hmm.
Like she wants so badly to stop feeling like shit, but the universe is still putting her down, and so obviously she still needs help. Like the whole idea of this whole entire thing, an overarching theme is that it's there's still so much more that you can do, and there's still so much more potential, so much room left for you to grow.
That was a good premise. I like it.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's just for the character-wise. Anyway.
Could you repeat that slight bit of roboting?
Oh yeah. So character-wise, yeah, that's the idea for these two. That even though they've grown so much by the end of it, there's still room for them to improve.
That's good.
Did I? Yeah.
I can feel that. Yeah, that came through loud and clear.
All right. Awesome.
Okay. Oh, that's good. So, yeah, I got a couple of comments. Yeah, I think that actually has something to do has a good deal to do with it. People are it's near end of summer weekend. People are probably going on vacation. I noticed my stocks took a drop of about $2,000, but it's okay. It'll go back up soon,
Yeah.
and shouldn't be a problem.
Where's Aspiring, by the way? Thought he'd be here.
Yeah, he said he would. Maybe just he wasn't able to come. Nobody up. It's a pretty slow week this week, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. So, um, I'll just read a Battle of the Seven Suns. Maybe people can watch on rewatch. Keep it a short one. Maybe I'll read smut. Maybe I'll read some smut. I'm kidding. Okay. So this is chapter 9. We're actually getting into the last 30. What's up? You said what's up?
Huh?
Hello?
Oh, I just looked through my
You
emails and I
sighed.
saw.
What's up?
I just looked through my emails and I saw something very frustrating.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So this is in the last little. This is kind of the lead up to the climax of Battle of the Seven Suns. It's kind of like I've skipped around a little bit of the book. Very little, all things considered, but kind of the end. I'm kind of ramping up towards the ending is the main thing, and basically like this battle that's about 30 pages long. It's about half of the book. And so that's kind of this is kind of just the slight lead up to the battle. Erisa watched Hera's army move out of the city through the eyes of a hawk flying overhead. The beautiful creature soared through the sky, wheeling and turning until she finally gained all she needed to. She could taste the battle to come, and she knew it would be pivotal. Her visions had given her knowledge of the enemy's path, and the view from the hawk's eyes confirmed what she already knew. She blinked and came back to herself in the camp within the woods, eyes shifting to normal vision. They are almost at the ambush point. He stood up, then motioned to her men. Move out. We have limited time. The mixture of Sitharis and elven officers saluted, open palms to chest, and bowed their heads. We serve the house of Alisane to the death, the elves intoned. But the Sitharis men made a different oath. Death to our oppressors, they vowed. May the blood of the dragon water the ground of Sitharis for generations to come. I am the blood of the dragon just as much as they are, Erisa thought idly. I'm just allied with you. Her ancestors had not been the ones who had conquered Sitharis. That had been Megara in her blood. Lilith's influence was clear in that. That jealous bitch wanted her brood to rule, and she won. She grimaced. but that would end with this battle. Purposefully, she walked over to Sisyphan and pulled herself into the saddle. Ares followed suit and jumped into Tantala's saddle. "Greatness awaits, sister." Raised his hand to her, and she did the same. "Indeed." She patted her dragon's neck. "We need to do this in order to preserve our people," she murmured to Sisyphan, who growled low in his throat. The battle would end in fire, and none would stand in the way of her ascension to the throne of Numenor. Narcissus thought what had been going on between him and Hera over the past few days as he flew over the army. He couldn't stop thinking about how he looked forward to touching her. Not even sex, just running his hands over her. Abruptly, Meraxia growled at him. "I can feel your thoughts in my head, and I would rather not have you there while you're in heat," the red dragon said sharply. "Either quit thinking about it or get out." Narcissus pulled his mind out of his dragon's mind, allowing the creature to direct herself. "Sorry," he apologized. "It's all right. It's just really distracting. You humans have strange mating habits." Meraxia shook her head as she wheeled above the army. "A lot of holes that you don't have?" Narcissus asked pertly. "Yeah, you do." Meraxia glanced to the side, then growled and started climbing higher and higher, wings beating powerfully. "Something's in the distance." Narcissus clung to the saddle horns and followed Meraxia's gaze. His breath caught as she saw what Meraxia had. "Oh, sod off with that!" He turned his dragon toward the ground. As he landed in front of the column, out of the column where Narcissa and her generals were riding. As he landed Meraxia, allowing the dragon to prowl to the horses, one of their scouts, a girl named Shalia, rode up one of their faster animals. The sight, or more importantly, the smell, caused the animals to whicker nervously, but they were used to having dragons around them at this point. Hera nodded to them, then quickly turned her attention to the scout. Groaning internally, he chewed his lips, feeling distinctly apprehensive as the scout laid out her report. All of the scouts were young women who'd worked as racehorse jockeys, which allowed them to ride hard and fast over short distances. They were currently traveling on the road where the rain had cleared up. "There's thousands of them moving toward us, Lady Hera," she blurted. "At least 3 times as large as us. They've cut off the path, and soon they'll start raiding our supply lines." "Something has gone very wrong," Hera grimaced, pounding her fist into her palm. This was clearly a thought-out ambush. How else could they have gotten us boxed into this position? "If we leave, then they will pursue and take us in the rear," Torash growled as he glared balefully in the distance, stroking his axe blade. "Did you see any dragons in the sky?" he asked curtly, causing the poor girl to flinch before Balerion an answer. "No sight of more than one, a bit smaller than Meraxia, but they might be baiting us," she said quickly. "Those buggers planned this out perfectly," Borderhar grimaced, stroking his beard as if he could wring gold out of it. Hera started toying with her reins, then nodded slowly. "General Torash, Commander Borahar," she nodded to her 2 commanders, "prepare your troops for battle." Chapter 10, Beginning of War. Hera and her army arrived on the battlefield, but the enemy was encamped out there first, and on the best ground to boot. Hera nudged Obliterator forward, keeping her eyes forward as she rode up a large embankment so she could survey the battlefield. The enemy had deposited itself with its main infantry force in a fortified set of hills, palisades surrounding the infantry, while the cavalry waited in front of the fortifications for the order to charge. There were at least 3 times her numbers in men and horses. But their primary advantage lay in the 200 mammoths that stood ready to barrel down on her forces like an avalanche. Hera leaned forward, resting her elbow on the high cantle of her saddle, surveying the flat battlefield. She couldn't make out the Sitharis from this distance, but she knew how they were dressed from years of fighting them. Tipped steel caps with chainmail vests and neck protection. Green silk over the chainmail. Large wedge-shaped swords for the infantry, though often they use spears or strange punching daggers with metal guards to protect their hands as secondary weapons. All had round metal shields, and the cavalry were equipped with bows as well as lances and curved sabers. "There's a lot of them, but I don't see any dragons," Narcissus remarked. Meraxia shifting paw off with eagerness to fight, claws digging into the earth as she flexed her long fingers. "See that?" the dragon asked, motioning toward the hills in the distance. "If I know anything, those rocks are concealing 1 to 2 beasts at least, possibly 3. When they take flight, we'll know. We'll also be ready." She nodded to the covered wagons they've been carting. "If they do launch dragons, we can use ballistas to shoot down at least one of them. One dragon can easily kill a couple hundred soldiers, but one shot can take it down." "You'd have to be extremely accurate or very lucky, though," Meraxia growled. Held, baring her teeth. "Depending on the size and the hardness of the scales, you'll most likely only be able to kill another dragon with a shot to the eye." "Yeah, which is where you're going to come in," Hera remarked. "As soon as the enemy dragons take to the sky, I'm going to need you and Narcissus to run interference for us. Keep them distracted and lure them to where we can shoot them with a barrage of bolts. Once that happens, you can spray the enemy with fire." "Sounds like a risky plan," Narcissus said, "but you seem to be putting a brave face on things." "But I'm in. As am I," Meraxia agreed, lifting her head and blowing a stream of scarlet and black fire into the air. Toresh and Borihar looked down on the embankment. Came up the hill toward her, the orc general trotting comfortably on his own 2 feet beside the man on horseback. "The legions are in position, my lady, as are my orc fists." Toresh hefted his double-bladed axe onto his shoulder. "We're ready to fight in the vanguard." Berghast grimaced in what seemed like resignation, likely at the prospect of not being in the front lines at the collision point of the 2 armies. "Lucky buggers," he grumbled, stroking the edge of his sword with the affection that most would reserve for one's offspring. "There's a lot of troops," Narcissus grimaced. "How are we going to fight our way through that?" Eyes narrowing, Hera rested her hand on Darkfire's hilt. "The plan is designed to negate the enemy's 3-to-1 advantage, but first we need to draw out their mimics onto the field so we can level the playing field." She nodded to Toresh. "Send a message to the Wolf Riders on the right flank. I want them to stand ready for when the enemy moves in. Borihar, I want you to engage your men now. I want a full-scale assault with your horsemen. When they send in the mimics, disengage so the Narcissus can burn the first few ranks of their beast, make them crash into each other. Just like Aemon did in the Battle of Fiery Tusks." Borihar grinned, turning and spurring his horse. "Cavalry, prepare to charge!" "Toresh, get ready for when the enemy attack. Actually, their infantry and cavalry," she rapped out. "I want your orcs to stop them in their tracks and turn this ground to mud with their blood." The orc general bared his fangs in an eager grimace before raising his axe and roaring in his own language to his people. Bellowing their own challenge, the orcs began pounding their spears on the ground and smashing their fists into their chests. Blowing out her cheeks, Hera readied herself and nodded to her signaler. A young scout out in her mid-teens named Shalia. "When I give the command, wave the corresponding flag until the enemy starts moving in the prescribed direction." The younger woman saluted and grabbed her long pole, ready to pull a flag up using a specialized pulley system built into the tool. "We're about to enter the collision point, Narcissus," she sighed. "The part of battle where your plan is thrown out and the fight is decided by your adaptability under pressure." Her new lover groaned. "Well, that's not at all comforting." "It wasn't meant to be. She shrugged and patted his shoulder. Prepare to take off. We're going to need you in the air. Breathing out unsteadily, Narcissus pulled himself into Meraxia's saddle, causing the red and black dragon to prepare to flight. Letting out a long breath through her nostrils, Hera released dark fire from its hilt, the midnight blade drinking in the light like a sponge. She let the sword drift down to her side, but it would soon be bathed in blood. She'd have to go in once the battle did not require her to orchestrate the fight, but that wouldn't be too far off if her calculations were correct. Often they were, but this situation was quite out of the ordinary. Pensively, she waited until Borahar had positioned himself and prepared to attack, then frowned as something whispered in her ear. Hera, it whispered. Put the elves in the center, with the wings of orc infantry on the sides. Elves in the center? Hera didn't realize she'd spoken out loud until Urgas gave her a look. Yes, she nodded. Give the order. We wait for the enemy to come at us and place the elves in the center, with cavalry in the wings. You're putting our smallest set of troops in the center where they could easily collapse? Torash frowned, brutish face concerned. Hera quickly thought through the implications of what she was thinking about doing. Then she realized it would be an excellent way of drawing in the enemy. I want the enemy to barrel into us.
Hello, hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to go.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. I have a few more sentences, then I'll head out.
Okay.
They'll go right
It's
at
good,
the
by the way.
weakest point. Then turn. Oh, thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, I tried. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just end it. Yeah.
I'll just go. Yeah.
You're roboting a little bit.
I'll just dismiss myself. Right. Oh.
Okay,
I was about to say I'll just dismiss myself right now. Let's see you next week.
Okay. I'll see you next week. I want the enemy to barrel right at us. And if we have the elves in the center, they'll go right to the weakest point, and then we can turn this into an encirclement. She nodded firmly, as if she weren't coming up with this as a snap decision. Do you disagree? They might break just by virtue of the enemy colliding with them, Urgas said calmly, running his clawed finger along the edge of his sword. Fine, Hera shrugged nonchalantly and turned back to the enemy. They're the most expendable troops that we have. Torash nodded slowly, then ran a finger along the edge of his weapon. It will be as you say. And that'll conclude it. Yeah, that's a battle in the first Dragonlord Annals book. This is book 4. Though a lot of it is basically a anthology history series where each book is about a different set of characters, or at least different set of human characters. The main bit of continuity between them is the fact that the dragons live for hundreds to 1,000 years, hundreds of years, and are around for a really long time. He never showed up. Maybe he is off. That would be very, very hard. I'm glad that Mr. Balerion is advocating for bestiality. I'm not that gross, but I don't know. You said that your your evil tyrant guy is too gross even for me. Well, maybe. But to kind of answer your question from earlier, the Battle of Fiery Tux is basically... I know, I'm joking. I'm joking. But the Battle of... Basically what happened in the Battle of Fiery Tusks is it was a cavalry battle with a bunch of giant elephants against horses. But what happened was a dragon came in along with her rider, Aemond, and set most of them on fire and caused them to crash into each other, creating a lot of confusion. But yeah, since that'll pretty much conclude things. A little bit shorter than usual, not terribly well attended, but hopefully we'll get back to normal. I haven't been streaming as much. I probably need to do a little bit more, just so we can keep the relative numbers up, keep the engagement going. Anyway, I will conclude it there. I will see you guys later. 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 Adios.